We built the Daytona Speedway, opened it up. I worked out there for 7 days a week for 13 months while we were building up, all through the construction phase. My father, his view was, well, if we're going to build something, let's build something that's faster. He was actually, when the track opened, he was bankrupt, but he didn't know it. He just pressed on it, got everybody paid off, and then the company went from there.
Mr. Bill France, who is the president of NASCAR, the president of Daytona International Speedway. And Bill, we have a wonderful day for the race.
Bill, it's wonderful to have the opportunity of bringing this race to so many people. We're looking for a great record here today.
The size and scope of the 2.5-mile superspeedway intimidated even NASCAR's biggest names.
It scared the hell out of me, I'll put it that way. We'd been running half a mile, quarter miles, and maybe a mile track now and then, and we look up there and see this monster, you know what I mean? And so I said, well, to myself, I said, those fellas ain't got no more experience to run this dang race car than I have. And so I said, I'll just get in there and run wide open. That's what I did.
Petty in number 42 Oldsmobile, Beauchamp in number 73 Thunderbird in a showdown race.
With his son Richard cheering him on, Lee Petty won the first Daytona 500. The track's inaugural race featured a historic photo finish. The start of the superspeedway era marked the start of a family dynasty.
Lee Petty makes his living building and driving race cars. Working with his son Richard, father and son build their cars and build them well.
When you talk to you're talking to history, because basically since '48, the Petty family and you have been around the sport.
We were there when they started the super speedway era, so that gave us so much more publicity than what it did in some of the ones that come before us.
So in essence, you are the first second generation driver. You are the first guy to follow in the footsteps of somebody who's won championships. When I see some of that footage of Daytona for the first year with just the guardrails, and I see pictures of you, I see pictures of Granddaddy driving in almost a sports shirt. It looks like you guys were daredevils in some of these things. It really does.
It was just a street car that we went around a racetrack with. You took your shirt and a pair of breeches and you dumped it in there and like starch. And it was supposed to be somewhat fireproof. You know, after it had a fire or two, they had little fire extinguishers inside the car. They didn't go off automatically. You had to take them and shake them around. You put the seatbelt on to keep from falling out of the car, okay? And you did have a helmet on to keep from bumping your head, but you didn't look at the safety part of it.
The devil is your partner when you play this risky game. Once you choose the highway, you'll never be the same. So if you want to ride, give the highway a steal. The road ain't got no mercy, and it's coming after you. Don't know why we never let you play with fire. You get burned when your life is a highway. There's heartache at every turn. Don't know why we never let.
You know, a lot of us put ourselves on the line really to make some of the safety features happen. We didn't see the dangers of what we were doing until something really happened. And then once it happened, we said, ooh.
In 1961, a wreck in the Daytona 500 nearly cost Lee Petty his life. Lee survived, but his driving career was over. Petty had led NASCAR through its infancy, winning 54 races. No driver had won more. If the family business was going to survive, it would be up to Lee's son, Richard.
I'm like 23, and the whole family is stowed on my shoulders. At that time, you had no sponsors or anything to back you. You was going from race to race and getting the money to go to the next race. One of the first things my dad told me, he said, anything worth doing is worth doing right. It takes twice as long to do it the second time. And I said, okay, I like his overall approach to the deal.
Father and son switch places. Lee standing behind Richard. Richard sitting behind the wheel.
And there's the checkered flag for Richard Petty, the winner of the 6th annual Daytona 500.
Richard, how long have you been in this racing business?
About 5 years now.
This your biggest victory?
This is it. This is the first time I ever won on a major speedway.
Now, your father was a champion before you. How much longer are you going to be in this business?
Well, I guess from now on, just like he is.
In the 1960s, Petty won 2 championships on 101 races, 27 in 1967. Richard Petty had become the head of racing's royal family.
Richard Petty keeps his foot down, turning laps at record speed. Lee Petty signals that the pressure is off.
King Richard the Racer is in command again. Richard drops into a corner wide open and turns the fastest laps ever run at Daytona in a stock car.
The fans greet Petty warmly, as they always do. If any man can be said to own Daytona, it is Richard Petty.
I've always been a real big fan of Lee Petty, and now I've changed all that. Now I'm a big fan of Richard Petty.
Well, I hope so. It works out better for both of us that way right now.
It means more money in the pocketbook, don't it?
It really does. When it comes to paying the taxes and everything, it's better if one of us is working.
He was one of our original heroes and still is a hero. I was at Richmond one time. The garage area is empty. He's there signing autographs. People want to know why he was so popular. Not only did he perform on the track, he also performed off the track. He's done probably as much for the sport, moving it along, as anybody has.
What made you want to do that? What made you appreciate the fans or take that look?
I think that's what my dad always said was, don't get above your racing. You are what you are. You are where you came from. It's not about racing. You're not special.
Now the series had grown over, 15, 20 years to a point where you had a major company that was your final sponsor.
You got to figure STP was the first national sponsor on a race car. That was $250,000 put in a pot that we didn't have. And so that made us a first-class operation at that time.
Richard Petty ruled over racing. But in an era of rebellion, Petty's power was challenged by Bobby Allison, an independent racer who, along with his brother Donnie, threatened the king's reign.
Daytona 500 continues under the green and leading right now. Car number 12, a 1970 Dodge driven by Bobby Allison, and that, Chris, is quite a story because Allison started 31st.
More than that, Keith, he's one of the few drivers who owns and maintains his own car.
I think I'm going to try to ride just a mile or two slower than my top speed and ride it out and see if I can make some money in the race and still win the championship, too.
Here I wasn't supposed to compete with this organization that had all this factory backing and sponsorship. And Richard Petty, he became the perfect target for me to aim at to get to be the best.
Now Allison has got to come back by Richard Petty. Petty moves up and lets him have the middle groove.
When Allison beat Richard Petty and won the Southern 500, the racing world took notice.
Meanwhile, Petty, the man they all came to beat, is moving up in his makeshift convertible and is giving Bobby Allison a little help in keeping his car straight.
It came across to me that he felt that he didn't have to run under the same rules that the rest of us did. And he was well liked by Bill France and the people at NASCAR and could get